In this podcast, Ethen Ostroff and I go through some crazy Q&A between each other on questions we never, ever asked each other before. So stay strapped in for this episode. You're gonna get some big gems from it. What the hell are you doing on LinkedIn? It's like this formula that you're like getting, what, 100,000 impressions you got like last month? And
no, it was closer to 1 million.
What?
Yeah.
What's this formula? You make like an edgy statement at the beginning of your post and then
so
vulnerability or...
I kind of appreciate Joe Rogan's hooks. Every short, it's like, the craziest thing just happened. And I'm like, what's that? And I was like, on pattern, and I saw how he's doing these, like, you're not even gonna believe this. And I was like, these such aggressive hooks. I was like, okay, there's something to that. It got me to watch this video about aliens or something.
Yeah.
I started following, quietly stalkerish in the background, my LinkedIn feed. And I was just paying attention to what really people were gravitating towards. And there's this guy who's a good friend of mine, his name's Hunter Garnett, and he's an attorney out of Alabama.
Yep.
And he's like this uber sweet, like cowboy trial lawyer,
Yep.
very religious, and his posts were so authentic and slightly vulnerable. And I saw him post this one post that, like, I was like, wow, that's it. The light bulb just went off for me. And it was talking about how he was like, I feel like I haven't been the best husband lately. That was his hook. And then he went into this, like, I'm working really hard, I'm not traveling the way I want to, or something. It was something along those lines. And he got like 150 to 200 engagements, like 100 plus comments on it. And I was like, whoa, he's doing something right on here. And I was just reading through his content. Hunter's in my fantasy football league. Like, we're like good buddies. We work on a couple cases together. And like, I just thought, combination of edgy hook plus really vulnerable. Like, I'm talking about shit I've never talked about on LinkedIn. Like, yesterday I talked about my biggest financial mistake of my life, where, like, in one push of a button, I lost 99% of my net worth. And, like, lost access to my crypto wallet where I had a multi-million-dollar asset. I never even told you about that. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it forced me to stay at my dad's firm longer, which is when I learned the skills I'm now implementing with Salesforce and VAs and social media, and I just got grit and resilience. And now I look back at that as, I probably was gonna quit and go into crypto and not do any of the things I'm doing now and not provide value to the universe. So what are things that are like slightly controversial hook, my take on a kind of controversial situation? I had one post go viral where I said, I don't give a shit about my super lawyers. Stop reaching out to me about being a rising star. It doesn't matter. This is like preying on the legal industry and their insecurities about being objectively a super lawyer. I just find the whole thing bullshit.
Yeah.
And I like ranted about it. And I got like 100,000 impressions on that one post.
That's crazy.
It's striking on, like, first sentence is like slightly controversial or personal or vulnerable, into, thing people are a little scared to talk about, either personal or industry-wide, and then my unique take on how I solved it or how I perceive it.
It's freaking amazing. You know what I think we should do?
What?
Why don't we go back and forth?
Sure.
And then I ask you a question, because I sincerely wanted to know that. This will pull great content out of both of us.
Okay. I'm going to ask very direct questions, because
Yeah.
you know me pretty well at this point.
Yeah.
I don't bullshit with stuff. Why should a law firm owner trust you?
Are you talking theoretically?
You can take that however you want. You run a lot of events. You know, you make statements that most of the time companies would be scared to make. I will double your revenue, or, you know, our marketing will do this or that. Why should they believe you?
Dude, what an amazing question. Well, I actually think the first way I would kind of reframe that question is with a different question, which is, and this is the question what we're trying to ask ourselves, is how do we make a law firm owner trust themselves enough to go all in on their own vision of what fully fulfilled looks like? And I think our biggest ethos, my biggest ethos as an entrepreneur and as a mentor to others is to awaken the sleeping giant within. And where I come from is a place of, like, I lived, and you did as well, I lived a life where I was under-fulfilled, not fulfilling my potential, not giving my absolute all. And that was the most horrific period of my life. I always have this saying where it's like, if you can run 100 miles an hour, and every single day, consciously or unconsciously, you choose to run 10 miles an hour, eventually that 90-mile-an-hour buildup is going to materialize in something. It's either going to materialize in anxiety, self-doubt, a buildup of angst, negative emotion. And I hate that feeling more than anything else. I hate going to bed at night feeling like there's something else I could have done. There's something about me I didn't truly and authentically express. I didn't give it my all. I hate that feeling because I suffered with that feeling so bad that I just can't tolerate that in myself. And that's what we try to awaken in our audience. When we make a big statement like, you can double your law firm in less than 12 months, which is a statement that we say a lot, that statement just comes from pure math. If you want to double your law firm, double your average case value. I feel like we're the only people in the industry that's stating these general truths that everyone forgets about. You want to double your law firm, double your lead volume. Mathematically, if your conversion rate stays the same and your average case value stays the same, you're going to double your revenue, right? So what we're trying to do is make a bold statement that shakes people, especially the majority of our clients are people who weren't growing their law firms before they worked with us. So either we could go out there and be relatable and say, oh, boo-hoo, I know how it is, growing 5% year over year. Let's get you an incremental percentage growth, right? But that would be giving in to the lie that I think law school perpetuated of lawyers feeling this resistance towards being business people. And if I
It's
give
not
into that.
practicing law, right?
Yeah. And it's practicing business. And so, you know, to answer your question, it first comes from the why, the reason that we make big statements in our marketing and in what we do is because I need to wake someone up first for them to even be open to making any change in their life or their practice. Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. From that point, you know, I'm super blessed now to have, 88 law firm owners who doubled their revenues last year alone. 88 law firm owners that work with us that we've validated doubled their year-over-year revenues. Of 400 clients, average growth rate from self-reported data that we got from our clients at 82% year-over-year growth.
So 88 out of 400 last
doubled, yeah. But the average growth rate across those 400 was 82%, right? So chances are, maybe I should change our tagline to say, there's an 82% chance you'll double your revenues with, or whatever. But however I could reframe that. But the point is that we're making a bold statement, and if I were to look at our company, 4 or 5 years from now, as long as we end up somewhere in the ether of those bold statements, I'm going to keep shouting them from the rooftop until until the legal industry shouts back at me and says, oh, we've heard it before, Bill. We're all already growing, enough. We don't need to hear any more motivation. When that day happens, maybe I'll shut up a little bit. And the team that we have, we have 102 full-time W-2 employees now. We have one of the strongest teams in the industry. We went out and boop, 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 plucked them from different companies and put them all in one place. But if I go back a couple of years ago, there really wasn't much of a reason to trust me other than the content that I put out. That's literally it. That's the only thing I had. I did a talk show on Tuesdays. The only reason that people put their faith in our company before we had all the client success stories is because I had content, and they were basically banking on me. And that became a problem at some point when we transitioned to becoming a real business. Everyone was buying just because they believed in Bill, right? Or they believed in Andy. And now, with the team that we have, it's about them believing in our IP as a company, our proprietary methodologies, which is coming out in our book soon. But I think I'll bring it back to the first point, which is I don't notice. We speak in front of thousands of attorneys with our events over the course of a year, and I don't notice that trusting us is a problem as much as an attorney trusting themselves. That they can push, let's say an attorney didn't grow their firm for 10 years. It's not about trusting me. If you didn't grow your firm for 10 years in a row, that's a trust issue with yourself. There's Google, there's enough available information. You could have grown your firm. Why didn't you do it? The reason you didn't do it is because there's some factor within you that makes you think if I invest in payroll, if I invest in marketing, it's not going to work.
I let go of these tasks or whatever.
Yeah, or if I let go of the legal work. Yeah. So,
I think something I appreciate about you is, like, the first time I met you, I was like a little taken back by how much of a genuine hype man you are.
Yeah.
Like, you will genuinely believe in people, and like, I've known you now deeply for 17 or 18 months where we've been working together, and like, you're still the same hype man. Like, you're the first person to say you believe in somebody.
Yep.
And that's contagious, and I appreciate that about you.
I appreciate that, and those are the words I've trained to talk to myself like, because I talked to myself the opposite for almost 10 years of my life with anxiety disorder. I was ripping myself apart from the inside out. I as a survival need, I literally had to start talking to myself like that. And when you start talking to yourself like that, you naturally start talking to others like that. But it wasn't that way always, and I appreciate that.
Sure.
Let's talk about, do you give yourself credit for the fact that attorney assistant was, about 2 years ago, just an idea? Or really just getting started? Just over 2 years ago?
Yeah, January 2022.
Yeah. Do you give yourself credit that this company last year did over $5 million in your second year in business? Like, in my second year in business, I did $1.5 million in revenue. I just don't know. Do you ever slow down and look at that from the outside looking in and go, wow, this is amazing? Or how does that feel to you? Because a lot of people would die for results like that. Most people never get a result like that. I'm curious at how you internalize that.
I think when you are the CEO, you don't really get attaboys very frequently.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm comfortable with that. My mission isn't to do 5 million in revenue. Like, I've never once in any of my LinkedIn content talked about my monthly recurring revenue or, I'm not a braggy person. It's just not my style. Mm-hmm. I'd rather focus on, my mission in my life is to place 1 million jobs mm-hmm. and to represent 1 million people. So like, I look at 430 people working in either of my organizations, and I think, I'm not even close to my mission. Not in like a self-deprecating way. Like, sure, I'm like proud of it. I guess there's no time to like look around and be like, all right, job's done, because it's not. I've got 1 million people I need to put food on the table for. And that's what gets me excited every day. Where I add the most value to the company is being the architect and solving problems. That's where I add the most value by far. Or, I guess I'll call it like enterprise clients, but like, you've had to tease me about this. Like, I have spent an hour with a solo practitioner with no bill, with nothing, because to me, I'm furthering my mission of placing 1 million jobs. It doesn't mean they all have to work through my company. It doesn't mean all 1 million people. Yes, I would represent them, but I view my impact as, I kind of saw what Gary Vee was talking about with Taylor Swift. Like, Taylor Swift will go show up to someone who invites them to her wedding and will play a song and leave. And the macro impact of a micro decision like that, I see such value in, because, relationships are the gold I'm mining.
Yep.
And a short-term rush and, contract and new sale to me, yeah, it's nice to hit our sales goals month over month, but like, I view all the upside in everything I'm doing in the true friendships and relationships that I build with business owners, with clients that I'm representing. And I know the clients that will stick and the clients that, really appreciate what I'm doing with them. My cup gets filled up by helping somebody improve something that will have a result for their clients. Because that makes someone who's going through something that they don't want to be going through's life a little easier.
Yeah.
So I think of it kind of like, if you drop a rock into a lake that's flat and you just kind of see the waves starting to go out, like, I look at my micro and macro decisions as just like, I'm just planting one more seed over time. So, to look around and be like, yeah, we're doing all this good work, that's great. And I'm proud of it. And I'm very proud of where we started and where we are in both of our companies. I definitely, for my people's sake and for my culture's sake, I remind them when I'm proud of them. And I remind, I guess I care more about my people feeling fulfilled than personally getting credit for anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such an interesting thing, because what you said about there's not a lot of attaboys when you're a CEO. You don't get a lot of people patting you on the back, right? I think one of the hardest things is understanding your self-talk. And the voice in your head is that of service. You're always thinking about how you can serve people better, how you can provide a bigger impact. And if the voice in your head is constantly thinking, how can I serve others? How can I provide a bigger impact? And you're obsessed about that, of course, on the outside, you're going to grow your revenues and all these external measures of success because your internal alignment is in the right area. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs get into entrepreneurship being sold on some dream. They saw a Facebook ad that said they could work 5 hours a week and, make X $1,000 a month, on autopilot with no work. And look, I clicked this one button and now I'm a billionaire. But all of my friends that I'm in business with that are also successful entrepreneurs, et cetera, their internal voice is aligned with how they can serve, not aligned with what they get in exchange for their service.
All right, so, realistically, a law firm owner might be watching this, curious about, how to get from point A to point B, From a where to place ads standpoint, what is, in your opinion, the quickest ROI to just get to minimum goal number of cases per month?
Local services ads, for sure. The problem with lead generation for a law firm is most of them don't have good intake processes, as you know, right? So our lowest cost per lead in our agency is Facebook ads by far, way lower cost per lead. But we still aren't solving this to the level that we need to. Even with Attorney Assistant, we need to force people to buy virtual assistants. I don't know what else to do, because we literally can't run their Facebook ads until...
Yeah, but what about the lawyer who has a 95% conversion rate?
They don't have a 95% conversion rate. It's bullshit. That's not cold social media ads leads. That's referral. But it's if everyone had a bulletproof follow-up and intake system, they're by far their highest return on investment, lowest cost per case would be social media, by far. You and I both know that.
Yeah.
The problem is the intake. So factoring that in, I would have to say it would have to be local services ads or Google ads, because lower volume of leads, higher quality per lead. Therefore, they don't need a crazy intake system to get a return.
Yep.
But if I could make it mandatory that every single one of our clients had outbound follow-up, then all of our clients would be doing social media ads. It's just easier said than done.
Yeah, I mean, our firm from January to January went from about 300 cases signed to we're at 3,100. And on average, it takes 7 calls to convert our cases.
Yeah.
We do it primarily through social media.
Yeah. And it's all about your conversion vehicle. So for us, where do you think SMB team, marketing to lawyers, where do we spend the majority of our budget?
Probably on Facebook.
Yeah, social media, right? Yes, marketing to lawyers. A company that's B2B, marketing to lawyers, our number one budget platform is social media. Now, when we were running cold ads and not following up with people, like ebook ads, this is before we had a sales team, of course we weren't getting a return on investment from it, because we didn't have the, quote, conversion vehicle. Now, we direct people to webinars through our Facebook ads. The webinar now becomes the conversion vehicle. So in that world, we don't have to do sales follow-up. We just have to get them to show up to a webinar in order to provide value to them. And then some people book consults with us, and then eventually they become sales, right? So our conversion vehicle, until we got our conversion vehicle dialed in and we pivoted to a webinar model, everything we did on social didn't work.
Do you think a webinar model would work for a flat fee firm, maybe with B2C?
Estate planning?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Heck yeah. Anything that's educational in nature, if framed properly. I know these guys, this guy runs a credit repair company that does $10 million a year. Just because he frames it as credit repair and he doesn't frame it as bankruptcy, he frames it as credit repair, he gets thousands of people on his webinars, right? And then back end, he has bankruptcy services and all these other things, but he's worried about mass numbers on the front end, and his positioning is such. I've always had this thought in my mind. I think you can do this for PI as well. And here's what I think. If someone were to do a webinar series that was literally just fun news and interviews in your state, interview famous people in your state, create this huge movement that's entertaining, and just interview big names in your state. Let's say that you're a Ohio lawyer. Interview everyone that's famous in Ohio, get some fun news going, and just get a herd of people listening to you, right? And then at the end, just say, oh, by the way, my name's personal injury attorney, blah, 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 blah. You ever need anything? Here's my website. Over time, you're imprinting your brand into that audience, and you're doing that while providing value to them. And I think that's going to be when someone figures that out in PI and is able to take information marketing, the way that we market B2B, and bring that to a B2C context like PI, I think it's going to be a blue ocean. And if you could just get the attention, do you think you would have more cases? If you were just a Pennsylvania lawyer and you had the attention of 50% of the people of PA, would you get more cases?
Just top of mind. Yeah, your eyeballs.
So these people put up billboards and force feed, TV, radio, billboard, force feed content to people in a spammy way, but that trust isn't built as much, right?
It's a long time.
Yeah, it takes what, 5 years to really have a increase in brand sentiment like that and real brand recognition?
I think like I'm just starting to enter that phase personally. And I've been on social since 2019 aggressively.
But your ads actually provide some form of immediate educational value, no matter how short they are. Most of these ads that are force-fed from lawyers to the public are not valuable.
Self-serving. Yeah.
So
I think there's I got an idea for you.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to create a course or a webinar teaching people like an estate law firm how to build a webinar funnel like this?
Oh my God. I could do it in my sleep, yeah.
I want that course. I would watch it.
Yeah, it's pretty simple.
I'm still learning how to do this shit.
Yeah. Webinars are basically TV shows. You basically get to create your own TV show. That's what I did for 3 years. I mean, that's what my talk show was. And the reason we stopped the talk show, there was a diminishing return on the talk show. I had already interviewed basically everyone in the industry, and my content was actually dipping in quality. I was just rambling on the talk. I was just doing it because it was on my schedule to do. And as soon as I fell out of love with it, I said, okay, well, I'm going to pivot to more of an organic YouTube long form content strategy and really put thought into my videos. And that's what we've been doing for, the last, I don't know, however long since we stopped the show. It's been a while. And we've seen no dip in results. I'm still delivering video content to people. It's just not live. But the fact that I'm putting more thought into my content now is I'm still building that same level of reciprocity. I look at it like this. If you're not going to provide a ton of value and you're just going to provide some value, the fact that you do it live automatically increases your value because it's more engaging when you do it live. When you don't do something live, when it's pre-recorded and it's not live, it has to be way more valuable. And I just fell out of love with making content for content's sake. I think there's going to be a point where I bring back the talk show, but not until I feel it again. It's just gotta feel it. I don't feel it, What was your experience of when you and I merged, or not before that, when we created the separate entity? I reached out to you, or I think I reached out to you.
You wanted to do, all right, so you reached out to me with the intention of building out a social media VA model.
Yeah.
And I kind of humored you and let you spill out your vision for probably 30 minutes. And I was like, all right, Bill,
these lawyers aren't going to make
I really
content.
haven't spent that much. All we did was actually a podcast.
Yeah.
Because you did here's who you should follow on TikTok. And I actually commented on it and we booked a time to do it. That was the first time we met.
Yeah.
And
in person. We had a call way before I interviewed you on
that's what I'm saying.
YouTube.
Yeah, that was maybe 2 years before that.
Yeah.
I came to the office.
We have James as a connection, so I'd always heard about you.
Yeah. James Helm, top dog.
Yeah.
You should follow him. He's got some great content.
Yep.
So I appreciated your passion. You reminded me of entrepreneurs I had dealt with. Very quick start, decisive. And I knew I had to navigate telling you I thought it wasn't the best idea.
To do social, yeah.
To do social, and I was like, listen, man,
Yep.
we can supply a video editor, we can supply a social media manager, but the churn rate on those roles is exponentially higher and add way less value.
Yep.
Because if you're going to do a VA social media team, you really need an assembly line of specialists in each role, which is realistically not practical
Yep.
for a 1 through 10 person law firm.
Yep.
Without someone like me who's a freak managing them all.
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, you know, here's this intake concept. Everyone needs to pick up the phone.
Yep.
They do that really bad.
Yeah.
Everybody, everybody needs to follow up better. They do that really bad. And I remember looking at you and like, and this was your face. You were like, this is, dude. And then you literally put the piece of paper down. And you just like literally, you started short circuiting.
Yeah.
You're like, dude, like, wow, this is so much bigger than anything we just talked about.
Yeah. So, and here's what went through my mind, because we had, I don't know if I told you this, we had already done a small focus group and survey of our clients, and we found out that the top 2 problems that they were experiencing was intake and recruiting. And that moment was me computing in my mind that what you just told me was going to solve the top 2 problems that our clients were having, which is intake and recruiting. You were going to provide a service to solve intake at a rate lower than what it would cost to hire a full-time in-house person. So in my mind, that was that reaction.
Literally short circuiting. It was hilarious. I still can picture you like I remember you literally did one of these to your head.
Yeah.
You were like,
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is beautiful.
So then we're in the room, and then I think within 24 hours.
Yeah.
I think it was within 24 hours.
We basically formed the entity and sold like maybe $200,000 in a webinar the next day.
Yeah.
Probably a little too fast.
Yeah.
Realistically.
No, it was. And looking back, it
One
definitely.
of my LinkedIn posts a few days ago was
we went
I
too
sold
fast.
faster than I should have,
Yep.
and you know, the product from where it was when I think that we had done about $1 million in revenue at that point.
Yep.
We had a few big clients who were really holding our revenue numbers up, but our margins were ridiculously low.
We held that webinar within, it was like that same week. It was like
Basically.
2 days later.
And at that point,
The deal wasn't even formalized when we sold at the webinar.
no. James and I were the only stateside staff at that point. James, my business partner.
Yep.
Like, we didn't have anybody. It was like James was literally interviewing VAs himself.
Yeah.
James did all fulfillment, I did all sales. That
Yep.
was our first year in business,
Yep.
basically.
Yep. Well, I would give yourself credit. You didn't just do sales. You were the product. You are still the product visionary because you're a practitioner of what you sell.
Correct.
So it's not just like you're doing sales.
Yeah,
You're an R&D.
I didn't sell, I told.
Yeah.
I would tell
You
what
shared
I'm
what
doing.
you were doing. Yeah. And then people said, I want that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we partnered within 24 hours. And I think it's important for entrepreneurs to understand is like a lot of the greatest decisions I know I've made, they've been made in under 24 hours. And it's not, when you know it, and going all in on that feeling is a feeling of self-trust that you steer as an entrepreneur, right? And sometimes that self-trust gets taken to an extreme, and maybe we did sell too much in the beginning. And then when you bank on yourself like that, you make bold decisions and you go all in on them, and you have the humility to look in the mirror and say, hey, X was great about that, Y was not great about that, and you continually sharpen, it's this self-learning mechanism that makes you the fastest learner of anyone that you compare yourself to. And this is a big insight I had recently, is like, I learned by doing.
Yeah.
Like we could have waited it out and not signed up as many people as fast, and we could have brought on less clients, and then we would have learned a little bit slower, and we wouldn't have known what the real issues were and how we had to dial in our recruiting process. And
That's just not how we roll, though.
it's just, I would rather take a lot of pain in a short time window and then benefit from that pain forever instead of a little bit of pain drug out for a really long period of time, not really learn that much, not have much incentive to change, and then you don't really end up making any change because there's not enough pain.
So, two things. One, you can't delegate your spider sense as a CEO.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
And You know, you can try as hard as you want to empower other people to make decisions. At the end of the day, on a big risk, you got to trust your spider sense.
Yep.
And I think when we were all growing up, you know, we all got yelled at once or twice, especially if you're an entrepreneur, a lot more than once or twice, for being impulsive.
Yeah.
And as you become an adult, the fear of being yelled at for being impulsive keeps people from being decisive.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
Wow.
you know, being decisive, I mean, if you see what Jeff Bezos says about the success of Amazon, right or wrong doesn't matter. Deciding is what matters.
Yep.
And the speed of decisions based on that spider sense at times
Yep.
is a direct correlation to where I know I at least am at today, even though, you know, my theoretical image of what I view success as is just happiness.
Yep.
I'm happy because I get to do what I do every day.
Yeah.
But decisiveness is what leads to the objective metrics of success, in my opinion.
Here's another question. When this is a hypothesis I've had for a really long time. When I started looking at, I saw this interview, Warren Buffett, and he starts talking about like how he tap dances to work. You ever hear that before? He gets out of bed and he feels like he's tap dancing to work, right? It's a sign of him saying how happy he is. He's like, if I could do capital allocation and not get paid for it, I'd be living in the same house. I wouldn't change a thing. Like,
He still drives the same minivan.
yeah, he
Eats
just
at McDonald's.
he's in love with what he does. And I think there's this counterintuitive belief that quote unquote rich people are unhappy. And I've actually seen the opposite in most cases. I've seen the majority of people who are, I'm talking really successful, not just country club rich.
I'm going to play devil's advocate in a sec.
Yeah,
go
but
ahead.
I have this hypothesis that feeling no cognitive dissonance towards what you do is the key to being unleashed. And I don't know if my rich person comment is fully true, but what I'm trying to express is that I've had this thesis that, like, if you wake up in the morning and you feel zero self-doubt towards what it is you're doing, you wake up and you go, fuck yes, I can't believe I get to do this every single day. Not bullshit, happy slappy level. Like, I'm not saying like there's days where you and I have to do shit we don't love doing as part of the job. But I'm saying most days you wake up and you're like, dude, I can't believe I get to solve problems within this sphere. I have this feeling that what makes people unstoppable is when they eliminate cognitive dissonance, the doubt in their brain that I should be focused on something else, but I'm not. What's your thought on that?
If we're talking pure business owner, entrepreneur world, I think the fire in your gut as to why you're doing what you're doing every day is a direct correlation between being successful and rich from that thing and being happy from that thing. So, for example, if revenge is your fire, if revenge is your fire, let's say you got screwed in the past and you're gonna go prove to that person and everybody else that you are smart and successful and rich and wealthy and, you know, objectively have things, a big house. If you're doing it to prove other people wrong, in my opinion, that's a recipe not only for sadness in time, because guess what? You're gonna prove other people wrong. If you prove other people wrong, great. You're gonna maybe get there, maybe. But once you're there, you might lose the fire for why you were doing that thing when you objectively have those things you viewed as the success things. You have the big house. You have the $1 million cases or whatever. You've settled those big verdicts. And now all of a sudden you're on your perceived top of the mountain. You've proved them wrong. Okay, so you've proved them wrong. You are now done, quote unquote. You know? I think that person is not happy. And I think that they were in it for the wrong reasons to begin with. Even if they are wealthy, even if they, you know, have the things, the big house, the nice car, guess what? It was all to prove that other person wrong. They didn't do it for themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
They did it because screw that person.
Dude, I'm going to edit what I said then. Here's what I'm learning from what you just said. It's the people who get into business for the right reasons that are the happiest. And like, not necessarily, that doesn't guarantee your success, but it does make you way more likely to be happy. If you got in the business to solve an important problem, well,
It's
you and I,
defining success.
you
What
and I
is
both
success?
know a problem is never going to be fully solved.
Well, you get out of bed excited to solve that problem today.
Yeah.
You're not thinking, when I have $1 more million in my bank account, that's success, that's happiness.
Yeah, yeah.
You're not climbing a ladder.
Yeah.
You already are, you enjoy the climb.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're climbing to get somewhere
Yeah, yeah.
for someone other than adding value to the universe,
Yeah, yeah.
in my opinion,
Yep.
you are gonna be unhappy when
Yeah,
you
yeah.
get there.
Yeah.
You're gonna feel unfulfilled. You're gonna feel like, I had to burn all these bridges to get here.
Yep.
I had to end friendships. I had to, do things that I now feel shame about.
Yep.
Because I thought success, things equals friends.
Yeah.
And you realize you're all alone. You can have all your mansions and parties and with nobody that wants to come.
If you fall in love with the service that you provide, you
Doing the service and problem solving to improve that service every day.
and it's the climb. It's exactly what you said. Like the reason
Success is enjoying the climb.
this is why I set goals. If I really think about it, like if I were to have no goal at all, because I was blessed with ADHD, this is a funny way I look at ADHD. To be an entrepreneur, I actually feel like you have to have a little bit of ADHD because you have to balance so many things in your mind all at the same time. You have to task switch.
And the only way you can spot a new opportunity that is worth, pouncing on is by thinking of something random at a random time.
Something new. The reason that I have such clear, definitive goals is because I want to know where I'm climbing. Because I will climb my ass cheeks off. That is one thing I know for sure. And one of my biggest fears is that I'm climbing the wrong mountain, or I'm not climbing in the right direction, or I'm going to climb in this area that's going to end up, decapitating me.
I feel like that's part of the beauty of it, though. You either win or you learn, to quote Jalen Hurts.
But that's why, yeah, that's true.
You have to climb the wrong one to know what the right one was.
You do, but there's also billions of people that came before us, and a very select few of those billions of people who have already learned things. And that's why I'm so addicted to reading, is because if I can learn through other people's mistakes, I mean, that is the ultimate shortcut. And I know this is something where you and I are a little different.
I have an alternative hypothesis on it.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't read. It's not that I don't appreciate other people's things. I view pure creativity and originality in how I problem solve as my differentiator.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to read somebody else's way they got there, because that might taint the way that I was going to get there better.
Yeah.
So, building out an intake system.
Yeah.
I didn't have a roadmap for that.
Yep.
I didn't read a book on it. I just saw we weren't chasing leads the right way, so I built a way and a framework to get there. And I saw that we weren't transferring calls the right way, so I built a framework to get there.
Yep.
I think on the fly problem solving, you have to tap into originality and creative problem solving to come up with the best way to do it.
So there's two types of creativity that I've found. There's organic creativity and there's synergistic creativity. I believe everyone has different thinking styles. I happen to be a synergistic creative. When I know the principles of something, I can be massively creative around that thing. When I don't know the principles of something, I'm not able to be as organically creative. And I think what you're talking about is organic creativity, which is where what I call bolt from the blue innovation comes from. This is idea from the big blue sky plops down in front of you and you see a whole new path. My form of creativity, I'd say 80% of the time is synergistic. 20% I do that. 80% is more, I want to learn best practices so that I have a sandbox in which to be creative. And I know lesson here, lesson here, lesson here. Like, I'll give you an example on this. Well, one very recent example is what we did today.
Yeah.
When we
like, I don't know how to do that. I would not be able to come up with that solution there.
Well, but what we also did was we referenced competition when we made a decision earlier today, right?
Fair.
For our business, right? We didn't just make the decision from the ether. We looked at competition and then we compared it to our value proposition and then met in the middle. That was synergistic creativity. Mm-hmm. And we had the framework of the profit and loss document that we looked at. So we had like 3 frameworks that, boom, met in the middle, right? And I think that's why, to me, mentors are another higher value of learning, I think, than books. I think the highest value of learning is mentors. And because you can hear someone's tone of voice in mentorship. You can't hear tone of voice in a book. So if you read an entire book and you take everything at face value, everything's equally as important. When you talk to a mentor can say, yeah, I read that book, I tried everything, and this is this, but this chapter was the biggest thing, and here's where to focus, right? And you're able to cut out 99% of the book and go all in on that one thing.
What are lawyers or law firm owners currently underestimating the most about where the industry's heading in, let's just go 3 years?
This is a frustrating question to me just because I'm thinking of precious human being lawyers who have worked with us. I'm looking that lawyer in the face right now, and I can't think of a better way to respond to this than, like, most lawyers are just struggling right now. Like, all the changes to come are, to me, a lower level of importance than the fact that just like so many lawyers are literally struggling to take home like a net profit of $30,000 in their law firms. Like, technology is gonna keep changing. So it has nothing, I don't know if it has to do anything with technology change or any of these things coming around the corner. I think it has to do with the owner of the law firm being a forward thinker. Because then you're gonna learn the new things as they come. Like, you were a first mover on TikTok. That's just your identity. That's just who you are. You're a first mover on stuff. You try things out when school came out. You're telling me about it first thing. When ChatGPT came out, you were the first person to text me about that. Like, every single time something has come up, you are the person that I know that is the first person to tell me about the thing. And I think more important than embracing some external technology thing, talking about AI or any of this stuff, is the business owner committed to change in the first place? Is the business owner committed to modernizing their firm in the first place, their business? And I don't think most people are. I think most people find a survivable business model and they make enough money to live, and then they die one day and they have nothing to give their family because they basically built something that's completely dependent on them and is outdated. And no one wants to buy something that's outdated, so they end up getting way less than they're worth. And it's this self-perpetual thing where people milk out
people's identities eventually.
Just let me milk out this survival machine I built and then die. Let me milk out this survival. And that's the legal industry over the last couple. And then you have a 1% of 1% of 1% of people who are forward thinkers, thinking of business, thinking how they can revolutionize their client experience, provide world-class results for their clients. And they're the ones who gobble up the market. So I actually think a lack of commitment to learning and adapting is the biggest quote unquote change.
Because that's not the practice of law. That's why. So 2 things on this. Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Is that cool? One, I have this very simple theory on this. We went to law school and learned how cases from yesterday prove our argument today.
Yeah.
We literally are taught look backwards, because that's the answer for right now. That is how we are taught.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this case from 1925
Yeah.
solves my problem. And it actually does.
Yeah.
That needle in the haystack case that your legal research person just won you that motion for summary judgment, and you win your case. Wow, you are good at looking backwards to solve problems today. Great.
Yep.
Stop running your business that way.
Yeah.
You can't run your business based on, oh, well, we profited $5 million at a slightly, 5% loss year over year. We've gone down a little bit, but we've been at $5 million for 15 years now. So
Yeah.
I pull home 500 a year, I'm good. Where people are screwed, and I've mentioned this at your conferences, venture capital money
Yeah.
is coming.
Yep.
And they're going to find their way in.
Yep.
And cases that people are pissed are $2,000 a case right now, all of a sudden are $5,000 a case,
Yep.
$10,000 a case,
Yeah.
$15,000 a case
Yep.
for an auto case when you're competing against Walmart for car accident cases.
Yeah.
It's already happening.
Yep.
And I mean, my firm is positioned for them to park their cash with me. It's intentional
Yeah.
because they're coming one way or another, whether you refuse to accept it or think they don't know the practice of law. Guess what? They're going to squeeze you out of the market. So
Yeah.
in my opinion, in 3, maybe 5 years,
Yep.
the general practitioners are done.
Yep.
They're out. There is no, I believe that there will still be a spot for the brain surgeons of the space.
Yep.
People who knock, 10, 20, $50 million verdicts.
Yep.
They will exist for a long time, if not indefinitely. The brain surgeons who are the best at the core brain surgery work.
Yep.
The art of practicing law.
Yep.
The best researchers are gone from AI.
Oh yeah.
That stuff is done. Brief
Yep.
writers are in trouble. Contract writers are in trouble.
Yep.
Template case types
Yep.
are going to be automated.
Yeah.
And if you are handling an SSD case and doing it manually in 3 years, you're done.
Yeah.
So I view in 3 years where I saw social media when I first got onto it. Today, it's now 2024. I got on TikTok in October 2019. I was way ahead. I had a 3 or 4 month runway where you convinced James Helm to be the probably 4th or 5th on TikTok. And maybe that was a joint conversation. Either way, and I had 3 months to do shit alone.
Yeah.
I had a blue ocean.
Yep.
My first piece of content, 250,000 impressions.
Yeah.
Unheard of. That's not where social media is
That's what
today.
I think business model innovation is going to be the answer. I think to your point, like if somebody doesn't embrace AI and all these things that are going to be replaced, like legal research, and it really comes down to business model innovation, and
Yeah.
it comes down to marketing innovation. That's literally it. How can you make providing a outcome for a client easier, faster, cheaper, and maintain the same average result? And or how can you acquire cases cheaper? That's
Yeah.
cost of goods sold and cost of acquisition.
Yeah.
Those are the two mothership numbers that will never change.
Where we are today, you are already way behind with social media
Yep.
if you do not have I said this on the podcast I did with Nick.
Yeah.
You are kind of a serial killer if you don't have an Instagram profile right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Like, no one's hiring you when they check one place and you're not there.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to have it as a baseline, because if you don't, you're kind of creepy.
That's why I think like you have to be. That's why I'm saying like the mindset's the most important thing. Like if you can't experiment with anything, you are screwed. If you can't experiment.
Today, you have to be getting your data clean.
Yeah.
Have to be taking your systems serious.
Yep.
Have to be delegating low-level tasks
Mm-hmm.
and testing AI solutions, because in 3 years, when my firm has, I don't know, what, 2, 3, 4, 500 people,
Mm-hmm.
and we have 5 lawyers under that 2, 3, 4, 500 people, and we're more efficient than any other personal injury firm.
Mm-hmm.
And we're moving into markets, and beating acquisition costs across the board,
Yep.
I'm not going to feel bad. I'm warning people right now.
Yeah.
I'm coming.
Yeah.
And I don't feel bad about it because I'm lean.
You're educating them as you do it.
I'm lean. I'm going to give you all my secrets. You join my mastermind, I'm going to literally tell you everything I'm doing. And I still know I'm going to do it fast and the right way. I don't care if people copy me.
Yeah.
I just don't, because I'm looking at what's next.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy, man. I think I gotta see, this is the bug inside of me that's always yelling. I gotta innovate faster. This is motivating me. This is a voice that's always in the back of my mind, is whenever I have conversations like this with smart people like you, I leave being more motivated than arguably the person listening to this. Because now I'm thinking, what am I not embracing enough? And I think that very thought is the DNA. Let's not say DNA, because then that makes people feel like they're a victim if they don't have the DNA. But that's the trait. I think that every
How can I get better?
entrepreneur has
Growth mindset.
have to get good at that stuff. Like, what is the freaking work? This is the gift that I have learned in every innovation I've ever done, every micro thing. I mean, we rolled out a fractional CFO business, a coaching business that didn't exist, partnered with you in virtual assistants. Like, all of these things are outlandish when you really look at the business model that we've kind of created with this ecosystem. But all of them were micro decisions in the moment. They weren't, it wasn't some
Someone
big
would call
decision.
them impulsive.
Yeah, they'd call them impulsive, move too fast, whatever. But all of them were just one decision.
I think
and
that's
none
just
of them killed
lazy
me.
thinking. Calling something impulsive gives you an excuse to sit on the sidelines.
Yeah,
Being decisive forces action.
you got to be impulsive. You got to. I mean, otherwise, what is impulsive? The word in it is impulse. Impulse is like impact, right? Boom. Like, I'm going to act on an impulse. That's how decisiveness happens. That is the key trait of moving fast as an entrepreneur. How else are you going to learn? Like, this is why I want to take back what I said about books. Yes, books are important, but books are useless if you don't take massive amounts of action. If you don't take insane levels of action, it's all just wasted knowledge. Like, you've heard of just-in-time learning, right?
No.
Just-in-time learning is basically, it's a learning model that some people learn great with. Is when I have a goal and I need information right now, I read a book on it right now, right? That's just-in-time learning. Preparative learning is where you're constantly preparing for something that usually never comes, so you fill yourself with all this useless information you never use. If you go into a just-in-time learning flow, and you're reading books on the thing you're doing right now, and you're learning from mentors on the thing you're doing right now, and then you're impulsive and you make a fast decision on that thing, and you get immediate market feedback on that thing, it creates this learning loop where you're learning a little bit of best practices, you're making an impulsive decision, you're learning what the market thinks about that, which is marketplace resistance. You're taking the data from marketplace resistance to then sharpen your abilities for the next time that you do something similar to that decision. And over time, you accumulate wisdom. That's wisdom. Wisdom is a lot of scar tissue from decisions you made, not books you read.
I think the mental health aspect of being an entrepreneur is balancing opportunity, I'll call it chasing, and decisiveness with FOMO.
Yeah.
And I think,
Great point.
you know,
Great
like,
point.
you don't have to feel like you're missing out if you're trying your best, and you can say that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel bad that I'm missing something right now.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm trying my best and I believe that.
Yeah.
And I'm living within my values. You know? So
Dude, the FOMO thing you just said is so key, because I wouldn't want someone to hear this and then go, oh, I just need to be
gotta do
impulsive.
all these things.
I
I
need to
gotta-
be impulsive every single day.
Like,
no.
no.
You need to be impulsive.
you need to be intentionally decisive. That's the difference.
It's the repetition that I think is one of the separators, is because once you find something that works, you have to be repetitive towards that thing. Like, this is when you ever hear, I know you've heard this before, maybe not, but I've heard this a million times. Like, when people who have people who tell you they run like 10 businesses, like getting started entrepreneurs who are like, yeah, I'll run 10.
I sound like that to people. People
Yeah.
look at me like that.
Yeah,
sometimes.
but you're serious. You're all in on those enterprises, and they're synergistic. They're not completely separate enterprises, right? Your law firm ties into the VA company directly. You have a ton of shared resources. But I'm talking when people are like, yeah, I run 10 businesses. I have a crypto business. I have an education business. I have a this business. I have a that business. I'm like, how in the living hell? I'm running one business, right? And 24/7 of my time, I am consumed with this one business. How in the living hell could you run 10 businesses that are all irrelevant from one another? And that's where you take impulsiveness, and that's the wrong model of pouncing on too many opportunities. Like, one of the things that's been two powerful decisions that I know I made is I decided to serve lawyers very early on, and I decided to have one core business. I had so many opportunities when I was growing SMB, so many chapters in our growth where it was time to go into this new vertical. It was time to go serve these.
That doesn't mean you can't do it later.
No, but I'm only going to do it when it's another $50 million opportunity or higher. If people were just more focused, like be innovative within your one thing. That's so key. Like
one core thing. You have multiple lanes
Yeah.
that tie into your core innovation, growth, focus.
Here's
company.
my one thing, ready? I want to help law firm owners double their revenues in less than 1 year.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do whatever the hell it takes. I'll get innovative within that sphere. That's it. So every decision I've ever made is just facilitating how do I make that happen? What other problem didn't I solve? What didn't I think of? What aren't we delivering on for that? So that's my one thing. Now, do we have different business units that serve that? Of course. Amazon has their e-commerce business, which is their lowest margin business, and then they took a sunk cost, their web servers, and they turned it into Amazon Web Services. And now that's their highest margin piece of the business by taking a sunk cost, which has given me ideas for attorney assistant based on what we talked about today. Taking a sunk cost and repositioning the business model on that sunk cost. But it wasn't like Jeff Bezos was distracted doing Amazon Web Services. It was a sunk cost. It was something he was already serving his own e-com website on, right? That's the innovation that drives things. Like when you look at Zuckerberg, when he pivoted Facebook from desktop primary to mobile, that was a huge innovation decision with massive implications to pivot the entire Facebook platform to a mobile app was a inordinate amount of work to reposition developers like that. Like such a bold decision. And it was hard, but it was within one sphere. Had he been starting 10 other businesses while building Facebook, he probably wouldn't have put in the time and effort to pivot.
Starting. I mean, they bought Instagram and made decisions, but those all were within the same core competency.
And you only buy businesses once you get to a point where your core business is pumping. I mean, I just feel like if people were just focused on one thing and then innovative within that sphere, they would make more progress than they ever imagined. So, all right, so that's it for today's podcast. Hope you enjoyed. Give us a thumbs up and also comment what was your biggest takeaway from today's podcast. And maybe we'll make another video on it. Make sure you go check out attorneyassistant.com, Ethen's company, and also smbteam.com if you want to learn how to get rich quick. No, I'm just kidding. If you want to learn the hard way, but the for sure way to grow your business, to create indestructible wealth for yourself, your family, and your future. I'll see you in the next one.